We got a banger fusion coming up, and I figured it's a good time for me to come back and talk to you guys a little bit about it. It's going to be really interesting, I think. He looks like he could be really, really good. I want to talk about ways, I haven't played with him yet, but I thought we could talk about theorycraft, some ways we can use him for a clan boss in other areas. Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're going to be talking about Emic Trunk Heart. Like I said, this is the new fusion coming up, and this guy looks to be a banger. Not only does he have unkillable, but he's got a slew of other abilities that make him really, really good. This guy's pretty much gonna be, if you think back how great Helicath was, this guy should be as good, if not better. Definitely gonna be very, very useful in a variety of areas. Now, big difference, obviously, is Trunk Heart has unkillable, whereas Helicath has block damage. Block damage is generally just better, but Trunk Heart has some other abilities that make him, I think, a better champion than Helicath. Now, can he do any damage? That's going to be a big question. Probably not, it would be my guess, actually, because his support kit is super big right now. And so what I want to do is just kind of go through the skills and kind of analyze, like, how are we going to use this guy and what ways is he going to be used, and look at it that way. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss the next one. So first off, if we look at his skills, right? A1, he increases the value of all shield buffs on this champion by 25%. Also increases the value of any shield buffs on the ally with the lowest HP by 25%. This obviously can be really, really useful. If you can put them in with, say, 2 champions or one other champion, you're gonna be able to really stack that HP. Just a flat 25% bump is pretty significant. I would say fairly comparable to what Brogni can do. So definitely something I'm looking forward to, trying to figure out ways to utilize him. I think there are definitely going to be some ways to utilize that increase of shield for things like clan boss, especially if you have a stun target, right? And you can utilize this to make that stun target with low HP have really high shield. That could be really, really useful. But I think the biggest thing with this is going to be for stuff like Scarab, where you're going to be able to basically duo it using Trunk Heart and one other champion and just kind of build up your shields over time. Basically every turn he takes a hit. So I feel like in that scenario he's gonna be really good. Could be really good for things like Bommel as well. So I feel like there's definitely gonna be some really unique Doom Tower usages of Trunk Heart that could be really, really fun. A2 places a shield on all allies equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. That's actually a pretty big amount when it comes to shields, and decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion by 1 turn. So that's another huge thing, is basically we have somebody akin to, say, a Painkeeper. So if you're trying to tune a clan boss team around the cooldown ability, all of a sudden man-eater teams become a lot more viable. There's a lot of other variations that we can go into there, and I want to talk about that in a little bit, because I feel like that's definitely something that even on a really budget kind of build, you can utilize this to a very, very good extent. And then his A3 places an unkillable buff on all allies for 2 turns and places a taunt and shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of the shield is equal to 30% of this champion's max HP. What that means is a lot like how Helicath, you can build an unkillable team just around Helicath, you're going to be able to do the same thing with Trunk Heart. The reason why, let's think about this. The taunt ability works with the stun ability from the clan boss, the Demon Lord clan boss. That means they will attack him. The shield means that he's going to take a lot less damage, or he's going to be able to sustain a lot more damage, right? If you have 30% of his max HP becomes shield, all of a sudden now the clan boss is hitting him as if he has 100% HP, but he actually has 130%. That's a really significant shield buff to give himself. Now, it's not enough necessarily to survive all the hits all the way through, right? You're going to need to build defense on him. That's going to make a big thing, right? It's a clan boss. You still got to, factor that stuff in. But that shield that he's going to give himself automatically with the taunt is pretty significant. Now, the fact he places unkillable on everybody on that same attack can make it a little bit trickier, right? Now, are we going to try and have unkillable just for, for the stun? I don't think we want that. So probably what we would do is not worry about the taunt at all. Either we bring in a buff extender, so we have that taunt last an extra turn, so hopefully it does absorb for the stun hit, or we just don't worry about it. Just ignore it and don't sweat it at all, and just let him worry about the unkillable ability for those 2 turns. And then he has shields on literally all of his skills. And that's going to be a big, easy way to kind of protect the rest of his allies. Now, it is unkillable, not block damage, and that is definitely going to have an impact as far as like how we're going to be able to survive it. But I definitely feel like you're going to be able to build teams around that. I'm actually excited to try that out. He also has a passive. When attacked under shield buff, has a 50% of increasing the cooldown random skill on the attacker for 2 turns. This obviously is not going to affect us here, but he does mean that he could be kind of an interesting champion to bring into arena, right? Where you can all of a sudden increase some cooldowns on these champions when he just takes that first hit. Might be an interesting, I don't know if he's like, perfect for this, but when it comes to, a lot of those tanky teams, being able to increase their cooldowns give you a chance to actually have your attackers go in. So that could be kind of interesting. And the cooldown of random skill and attacker occurs once per attack. Whenever an ally HP drops below 20%, increases the damage dealt by that ally by 20%. So there are some potentials in other areas of this game as well. I think we want to kind of keep an eye on that as well. That could be kind of interesting. So how do we use this guy? Well, obviously, the increasing value of the shields is actually pretty significant. 25% is a pretty flat increase. More attacks with that A1 means more increases with that shield. There's certainly some potential there. I think that there is obviously going to be some interesting stuff that you can do. I don't know if he's going to be good for something like a the infinity teams. I don't know if he's really going to work on that because he is only increasing the value of 1 champion. So I'd still probably want to lean Brogni, but that's certainly a potential, especially when you consider the fact he brings unkillable. So maybe you can survive having, low shields on everybody except for him and somebody else. It's a possibility. I don't know how well that would actually work, but it's definitely something we could consider going forward. I think the big thing is obviously decreasing the cooldown of ally skills. That's pretty massive. That's going to mean that, you can make 4-turn cooldown champions work on a 3-turn cooldown, because that skill, when booked, is going to be a 3-turn cooldown. So champions like Lysandra might all of a sudden have a place in things like Clan Boss. It also means that a champion like Maneater, who has a 5-turn cooldown on his abilities, will now be able to reduce that to a 4-turn cooldown regularly, because the A3 ability, that unkillable, is on a 4-turn cooldown. That's going to kind of gate the A2, unless you prioritize the A2, which would be kind of weird to do. But it would gate it so that would come every 4 turns, reducing Maneater's 5-turn cooldown ability with his unkillable to 4 turns. So you could easily put together a Trunk Heart Maneater team, I think, with really good success. And having the block debuffs with Maneater obviously makes that a really nice option as well. So there's definitely going to be a lot of ways to utilize this champion. And I don't even want to get into what it would be like if you had 2 of them. I don't know how that would work. I think it'd be kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that really plays, but that could be really interesting. Now, one of the things I need to figure out is, does that cooldown ability work in conjunction with other decreased champions like it does with oh gosh, what's her name, the Shadowkin lady that resets everybody's cooldown. Anyway, it works with her, right? That's one possibility, where Yumeko, she can reduce each other's cooldowns, right, if you have 2 of them in there, or she can reset, Kaimar or Renegade or Painkeepers, but those other champions won't reset each other, right? So there's an interesting dynamic there on how that can work. So if his skills can be reset by other champions, that could make it for some really interesting comps, and could make it actually really, really interesting, where everything kind of drops down to 3-turn cooldowns or 2-turn cooldowns. It could be fun. But this guy's obviously going to be a game changer for every account out there. Obviously, really end game accounts, you might not utilize him all the way, but I would be shocked if people aren't going to be using him for things like Scarab, for things like Bommel, even not to mention obviously Clan Boss. There's going to be a lot of usages for him there, and then of course it'll be interesting to see how he plays in other areas of this game. So I feel like there's a lot of potential with Emic, and I'm really interested to kind of get in there and test him out and see what he can do. But this is kind of the time where we got a couple days here, we've got a weekend to kind of think about it. Like, what are the ways that you would utilize this champion? How would you go about building a team with him? I would love to hear from you guys down below. Obviously, I have access to test server. I would love to test some things. So if you have some suggestions of ways that you would utilize them, go ahead and leave them down below. I'll read through them and, you know, see if any of them strike my fancy. I'll give them a shot. But obviously, I need to try a few things as well. But this guy's going to be, I mean, a game changer for pretty much everybody. I think if you're a beginner account, you pull Emic and all of a sudden your team is pretty much made. So, you know, take that for what you will. But I think this guy's going to be incredibly good in a lot of areas of the game. And I haven't even really, I mean, to be honest, haven't even thought of all the ways this guy could be really useful for us just yet. I've just been kind of taking, you know, really surface level stuff. Until you get in there and start playing around with these champions, it's hard to really start to, you know, it's really hard to theory craft without seeing some impact of how the skills work and how everything puts together. So I'm very excited about that. Hopefully you guys, you know, got your juices flowing, got your brain thinking about some ways to, you know, work on some of this stuff. Obviously I haven't been around for a little bit. I'm, you know, slowly coming back into streaming phase. My vacation just kind of wiped me out and you know, ended up extending it. It's been very hard to get off of vacation time. So hopefully this will help get me back into it. I'm really excited to play around with this, guys, and I'm really excited to share some builds with you guys. So anyway, that's what we got for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.